Hello everybody, welcome along. My name is Benjamin Bloom. This is the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel. Please leave your bias at the door. You can probably tell by my bedraggled appearance that I was expecting a quiet Sunday today, planning for everything tomorrow. However, the Championship has given us news today and I will react because it's managerial news, and Bournemouth have appointed Jonathan Woodgate as manager until the end of the season. Obviously, the story was long-term, kind of heroic Bournemouth manager Eddie Howe goes after the relegation. Bournemouth decide, use whatever terminology you like to keep the continuity or do it on the cheap with Jason Tindall. That doesn't work out, losing run. Prior to Tindall's sacking, Woodgate had come in as a coach, and Tindall is fired. Woodgate is put in temporary charge. We hear about interviews, Woodgate being one of them. David Wagner mentioned, Thierry Henry, big links, the normal Paul Cook, Danny Cowley type names, Nigel Pearson, etc., all getting mentioned. But in the end, Bournemouth have chosen to go with kind of incumbent guy Woodgate, who's already there. Let's have a look at the club statement. AFC Bournemouth can confirm that Jonathan Woodgate has agreed a short-term deal to be the club's head coach until the end of the season. The 41-year-old has been caretaker manager for the Cherries' last 5 fixtures. By the way, it was 3 wins, a draw, first defeat yesterday at QPR. So maybe a win yesterday and the board would have been a bit happy with going with this morning. In that time, there you go. It tells you exactly what they've done. What I've just told you, keeping 3 successive clean sheets, progressing to the quarterfinals of the FA Cup for only the second time in the club's history. That was an away win against Burnley's reserves, basically, but a good win nonetheless. A win's a win's a win. Bournemouth Chief Exec Neil Blake said Woodgate's professionalism and leadership has impressed the board of directors since taking on the role of caretaker manager in difficult circumstances. Team's performance and results have improved under his stewardship, and even our defeat at QPR on Saturday was a display which deserved a much better result. As we head into a crucial part of the season, that is 15 games to go for a lot of teams now, stability and clarity is of paramount importance for everyone at the club. With that in mind, and having concluded an extensive search for a new manager, we believe Jonathan is the best candidate to lead the team for the final 15 games of the season. Now, look, it's the easiest thing in the world to come on here, or not even come on here, to have the opinion that a manager's going to fail. Anybody can sit there and say, that's a bad hire, he'll fail. And do you know what? 8 times out of 10, you'll probably be right, because managing at football is really, really hard, and not many people succeed. And in the Championship, especially if you're with a newly relegated parachute team, if you don't get promoted, you failed. Basically, that is the way it is. So, look, I know a lot of people are going to go, this is a new manager, it's Jonathan Woodgate, there's certain things from back in his career, he didn't do very well at Borough, he's going to fail. That's going to be it. I don't want to just do that. That might turn out to be true, of course, but let's just have a quick look at the kind of pros and cons and will he succeed or will he fail? The first thing we've got to look at is Middlesbrough, and that is Jonathan Woodgate's 38 games in charge of Borough last season. 9 wins, so joint lowest in the division there with Barnsley. On his watch, they wouldn't have been relegated by 2 goals on goal difference. And we do need to say, obviously, Wigan are going to get a 12-point deduction as well. So he would kind of be the 5th worst rather than the 4th worst. But needless to say, it didn't go well. However, in defence of Jonathan Woodgate, and I'm not a Woodgate apologist, I don't care. I'm a neutral here. I'll just try and tell you the facts. It was a hard job because Middlesbrough, yes, big club, yes, Premier League. However, they'd come down and they'd run out of parachute payments. And that transition away from being one of the wealthier clubs to, okay, we're just in the middle with everybody now. And by the way, there's 3 teams coming down with an extra 45 million quid in the first year. That's a hard transition to make. If I remember it correctly, they went with Gary Monk for like half a season, spent a bit of money. Then they went with Pulis. They only got 2 years, didn't they? Because they were only up for one season after Karanka had got them promoted. So what Jonathan Woodgate had to do was transition, one, away from a Tony Pulis squad, and that's important. And two, be the guy that went from, well, okay, you can have Adama Traore, Patrick Bamford on loan, you can sign Aidan Flint for 6 million quid. It went from that to, you've got no money, play the youngsters, etc. That was the deal. That's obviously what he signed up for. And it's really important to say the transition from Pulis to Woodgate, because I've seen this firsthand, Mick McCarthy to Paul Hurst at Ipswich. If you go from a manager who plays quite rudimentary, straightforward, often successful football, and you want to take players who have had straightforward instructions for years and all of a sudden make things a bit more complicated, play through the thirds, rotate positions, etc., etc., sometimes that's quite a hard sell. And unless you have a long time to coach it, or you're Marcelo Bielsa, it's quite tricky to snap your fingers and get it right straight away. Woodgate tried to switch from a Pulis team with Borough having parachute payments to a kind of footballing team with less good players and way less money. And it just didn't work, did it? And he ended up getting fired. So, yes, it's true to say it didn't go well, but it's also true to say it was a hard job. And it kind of, we expected a drop-off, but we didn't expect it to be relegation form. I have to say, there was one weird period over Christmas where Borough were really good. I think they won 5 or 6 games in 8 or something, but then it all tailed off again. So we did think he was going to get it right halfway through, but no, didn't happen. And go figure, Steve Gibson goes for Neil Warnock instead. That's Borough. So my conclusion on Borough, yes, ultimately a failure, but there were mitigating circumstances. It was a hard job, and it turns out a job for an experienced manager. A parachute team to a non-parachute team, basically. Let's look at Bournemouth this season. That's where they are. 6th position, 49 points, 15 games to go, with, breathing down his neck, Mick McCarthy, Neil Warnock, Michael O'Neill, and Barnsley in their pressing machine. So I know there's going to be commenters saying McCarthy and Warnock are going to be licking their lips now. They're going to eat this guy up in the promotion chase. You may be right, but we will find out. Normally, we're looking at, I think it's like 73. I could be wrong on that. 73 is like the 10-year average for playoffs. Obviously, you could get a high year, you could get a low year. Teams getting in with 68 before and missing out in 14-15. I mean, Wolves missed out with 78. You don't know. Depends. If we get a big surge of point scoring now, that may work against Bournemouth, especially given the runs that particularly Cardiff run, and if Borough and Stoke can get on a run as well, you might get a high tide, and Bournemouth and Woodgate might get their feet wet as the tide comes in on the south coast. There are lots of water references. Let's be honest, Bournemouth have got a good squad. They did have to sell Nathan Ake and Ramsdale and Wilson and King in the window, but still, Begovic, good. Cook's been there for 100 years. Kelly, expensive championship player. Rico, good fullback. Smith, Stacey, Lerma, Stanislas, Lewis Cook. Brooks should be one of the best in the division, not in great form at the moment. Danjuma, good player. Solanke just brought Long in. Look, I'm reeling off loads of players that would get in a lot of other championship teams. So, I've said about this appointment before knowing it was going to be Woodgate, if they make a good hire, a competent manager, yes, it's only a 3-point gap, but they do have particularly a better first team and a better squad than really most of the division. Obviously, Norwich have a very strong squad. The other relegated team, Watford, also do. And then you've got your ones who've recruited well and built up over the years, like a Brentford or or a Swansea. Reading are perhaps performing above. I think their manager's doing a good job. So you would say a Bournemouth ran in a competent way with good management should make the playoffs. Are they going to make automatic? No, they're miles behind, aren't they? They're 8 points behind. You can see Swansea have even got 2 games in hand, so could even be even more. So basically, Bournemouth have bet on Jonathan Woodgate getting them into the playoffs and winning the playoffs. That seems to be the case. Let me just give you my views, and you can obviously get yours in the comments. So, number one is it's a short-term hire. That's a fact. It goes to the end of the season. What we need to decide is that a good thing or a bad thing? Should they have bought, I don't know, Paul Cook or Danny Cowley or Nigel Pearson, whoever, in Thierry Henry on a 3-year contract right now with 15 games to go in the middle of COVID? You can argue that the short-term hire is sensible because of where we are in the season and, the COVID situation. You could also argue it's silly. Get someone in. You got 2.5 years or 2 1/3 years left of parachute payments. Build. If it goes well this season, great, but get ready for next season. So you can argue the short-term hire either way, frankly. Continuity, okay. He does overlap Tyndall slightly in terms of coming in as a coach before then. I think it's helped him that he's had an on-the-job audition, and he obviously interviews well, doesn't he? He's got 2 decent jobs now in terms of club size in the Championship, and he's got the Holy Grail. He's got a parachute payment job to the end of the season. So some sense of continuity, I guess. Better fit than Borough. What I mean by that is Jonathan Woodgate tried to, like I say, play through the pitch and play progressive, this sort of modern style of football. Use whatever words you want rather than criticising mine. At Borough, with players that had been previously managed by Tony Pulis and a few young players coming through. I think we can all agree that from what we know about Woodgate's philosophy as a manager, it's going to be easier for, Jack Stacey and Diego Rico as the fullbacks and Lewis Cook in midfield and technical players like a Stanislas, or Billing or Brooks, Danjuma. It's going to be a better fit for that philosophy of football than it was at Borough. Now, you can argue that Jason Tyndall knew that philosophy of football because he worked with Eddie Howe for so long. And you could argue that Bournemouth have been playing that formation, philosophy, etc. all season. But I will say, for those who are going to just point to Borough, and I'll go on to my next point, this is a better fit. Whether it works or not, we don't know. And I'm just going to put there, unfair comparison to Borough. Yes, the sample size we have got is 38 games at Borough, and he failed. But what I will say, and I'm not saying this means he's going to succeed, is that just because he failed at Borough doesn't mean he's going to automatically fail at Bournemouth. It's a complete apples to oranges comparison. You've basically got one club who just ran out of parachute payments, had to retool, and prior to Woodgate had a manager who managed completely differently. You're now going to a club with a lot of technically good players who were in the Premier League. They've still got the parachute payments, so they've got that financial advantage if they can use it. Not everybody does. Yes, I know, I'm not saying parachute payments guarantees promotion. You'll never ever hear me say that, although some people seem to feel quite binary about this. It is an advantage to have more money than everybody else, though. It really, really is, and you know that that's true. And obviously, it's a style of football that feeds in better to Woodgate. So I don't think it's fair to say that because he failed at Borough, he will fail at Bournemouth. I don't think that's fair for the reasons that I've just outlined. But I'm not saying that he's going to succeed. We don't know. Crystal ball here. And my last one, still much to prove. Yes, he obviously still has a lot to prove. Other than that Christmas period for Borough, didn't work, did it, at all? And I remember a really good away winner West Brom, where Ashley Fletcher scored an amazing goal for Borough in that little period. But yes, he still has a lot to prove, and I can understand, and I know I can see it in the comments already. There will be ambivalence and a bit of trepidation about this hire. They've not signed him on a 3.5-year contract in August, have they? They've signed him on a 6-month contract with 15 games to go. So, we are up in the air on this one. I'm a flip of a coin. The best case scenario is that he's a good coach. He's going to be a good manager. He's obviously highly experienced, played all around. You don't get to play for Real Madrid and not learn anything, you wouldn't have thought. Played for some good managers. And the best case scenario is this is a much better fit. He's already in there. There's 15 games to go. And the best case scenario is he gets a tune out of Bournemouth. As I've said, a competent manager will get them in the playoffs. They have got a better team than those people chasing, and probably a couple of the people above them as well. So I'll reiterate, the best case scenario is they get in the playoffs and win the playoffs. I'm not saying that's going to happen. That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is everybody who's commenting in this video saying Woodgate's not very good and Woodgate's not the right hire, they're all right. And they drop out of the playoffs. And obviously, Woodgate will then not continue on. It's a bit of a hide into nothing for Woodgate. A bit like Scott Parker last season. He basically has to get promoted. That's it. Or else they're going to bring somebody else in. You'd hope, fingers crossed, post-COVID. But if he doesn't get promoted, then Bournemouth are going to go another 2 years. They're probably going to sell, I don't know, David Brooks, whoever the hype, Lloyd Kelly, whoever the young players that Premier League teams are going to want to take in the summer. And they'll have a new manager. And then they'll only have 2 years of parachute payments and that potential advantage left. So, I don't know. I'm the flip of a coin. It's not like bringing in Chris Hughton or a Mick McCarthy or a Neil Warnock where you say there is a lot of evidence that this guy will be a good manager at Championship level because we've got years of it. We don't know, frankly. And what I will say is I don't think it's fair to look at Borough and say he's going to fail because of Borough. Yes, he might not be the right guy, but I still think it could go right. You do not know. Let me know what you think. As you can see, I'm completely on the fence about this. Hopefully I've presented some ways it's a good hire and a sensible hire. There's always a best case scenario and there's always a worst case scenario. You let me know what you think in the comments. Jonathan Woodgate is the Bournemouth manager for possibly 15 games, possibly 2 playoff semi-finals, possibly a playoff final. If you're a Bournemouth manager, you'll hope he's the manager for 18 games and up Bournemouth going to the Premier League. But if you're a Cardiff fan or a Borough fan watching, you hope he's manager for 15 games. So let me know what you think in the comments. Jonathan Woodgate is the new Bournemouth manager. Over and out. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button to see more videos from this channel. Hit the subscribe button and to be notified every time we upload. Ring the bell for those notifications to come through on your device. If you really want to support the channel and me as a content creator, I will be eternally grateful if you head over to the merch store and grab something, or support over on Patreon, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. Thank you for your time. Go and watch another video.